Cancel culture is all the rage these days, but what about self-canceling culture? Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, this phrase popped into my head today, and I realize it's the culmination of so many things that we have seen in our popular culture, which seems determined to become our unpopular culture. Some people call it get woke, go broke, but I like my phrase better because I'm the one who thought of it. Let me give you the latest example of this. It comes from Seattle Seahawks coach Pete Carroll, who was on a radio show on Saturday. And he has evolved as a human being from orange man bad, which is really hate directed at a single person, to white men bad. So he's broadened his perspective, don't you see? I want to read to you an exact quote that he said on this radio show. He said, "Black people can't scream anymore. They can't march anymore. They can't bare their souls anymore to what they've lived with for hundreds of years because white guys came over from Europe and started a new country with a great idea and great ideals and wrote down great writings and laws and all of that about democracy and freedom and equality for all. And then that's not what happened because we went down this other road here and followed economics, rich white guys making money, and they put together a system of slavery, and we've never left it, really. It's never gone away." It's almost impossible to make sense of that. It's historically wrong. It's basically silly. It's virtue signaling and all the rest. Scott, the thing that people seem to have forgotten is that football tickets don't purchase themselves, that TV advertisers don't buy ads for audiences who aren't there. Whatever happened, I guess, to keeping the popular culture popular with the people who pay for it?
Well, first of all, I want to applaud Coach Carroll for giving a rather succinct summary of the New York Times 1619 Project. It was really the whole history of America right there, and you could save yourself a lot of time by just rereading that Pete Carroll quote rather than reading that series of articles, which has now become a major curricular project in America's schools. It strikes me that the first thing that Pete Carroll and the NFL could do if they really want to put an end to the enslavement of Black Americans is stop buying and selling black men and trading them. Here he's
beat
engaged.
Me to it, you bastard.
What's that?
I said, you beat me to it, you swine.
It's okay, Bill. I got a great setup for you, too.
Now that said, these are very well compensated people who are being bought and sold, but I always thought it was an unusual business in that the NFL is actually one company for all intents and purposes, and they have their rules of operation, and they're allowed to move guys around at their whim. And so, when you hear this sounds of this benign process of like, oh, today's the final day to make NFL trades or whatever. And it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean trades? What I mean by that is we're going to take a man and we're going to take him out of his community. We're going to drag his wife and kids across the country and throw him into another community. The kids have been involved in the local schools. The wife was involved with her friends nearby and perhaps church or other kind of social activities. And now we're going to just uproot them from Kansas City and send them to New York City. That, it seems to be, is a point of self-reflection that Pete Carroll might want to engage in. That said, I mentioned this in our backstage episode, which you can only see if you're a member at BillWhittle.com. But the thing that bothers me about these sort of skimpy analyses of history is that people seem to throw out everything we know about human nature and decide to evaluate every person in history on their worst day or by their worst decision or according to, their worst habits. And we don't have a more well-rounded view, which is the view that we expect people to take from us. So if you're a football coach, for example, and let's say you've lost 30% of your games or 60% of your games, you really don't want to be evaluated just on the losses. You'd like to be evaluated on the wins as well and on the things that you do well. But we're a lot better at looking back in history and saying, well, you see what this country did wrong, rather than looking at it in the balance and say, well, given the fact that it was run by humans, they did wrong things, they did right things, and overall, little by little, they tried to correct the wrong things and do more of the right things. That would be sensible. That would be a little humility injected into this whole debate.
Yeah, and Scott, in fairness to the NFL, when they move someone from one field to the other field, these days at least they keep the families intact, and I think that's a point in their favor. Bill, I hesitate to point out, this might not be obvious to everybody, but Pete Carroll is a white man, and he works for the Seattle Seahawks, which is owned by Jody Allen. She is a middle-aged white woman, and she's not even some entrepreneur who bought herself a football team. She's actually the sister of the co-founder of Microsoft, Paul Allen, and sort of inherited the team after he died a few years ago. He was tragically young, brilliant guy, a terrible loss. If you were really being honest about your white guilt as Pete Carroll, wouldn't you urge Mrs. Allen to sell that team to a struggling black man at a huge loss, and he himself relieve himself of his position and give that coaching job to a struggling young black coach?
Well, needless to say, I mean, when Pete Carroll was talking about black people being owned by white people, it decided to go into the whole thing just for the money. I thought, so you're talking about the NFL Owners Association? Is that who you're referring to? I'm not up on my history quite as well as I thought I would be. Pete has achieved what I like to think of as kind of like woke temperature stability. He's woke thermal equilibrium. That's the term I'm looking for. That's the term I'm looking for. He has managed to hate himself enough so that he is no longer capable of absorbing any more hate. That's what you're really looking for. You're the entire purpose of this. Yes, exactly right. The entire purpose of woke culture is to get you to hate yourself so much that you no longer have to be hated by somebody else. You can hate yourself on your own now. It's pretty advanced, really, if you think about it. And so he's reached this kind of thermal equilibrium now. But here's what's interesting about the larger picture about self-canceling culture, Steve. So this whole get woke, go broke thing, needless to say, it's a thing, but it has been so catastrophic that we are no longer in the get woke, go broke phase of American life. I'm not making this up. We are now in the phase where every single business that is in America is doing everything they can to dig themselves out of the get woke, go broke hole that they put themselves into. And you can't improve on this much more than you can when you look at either Star Wars or Star Trek. Star Wars went woke with The Last Jedi and destroyed the franchise, utterly destroyed the franchise. There's serious talk now on the part of Disney of basically ditching the entire 3 films. They're just going to say it didn't happen. It was all an illusion that Luke had, and they're simply going to pretend that it didn't exist. The Picard and Discovery have been catastrophic failures. They've replaced Discovery with a version of Star Trek, which has a Captain Pike who's a white guy, and they've got a Mr. Spock, and they've got a number 1 from the original series. And all of these pop culture franchises, Ghostbusters, great example, right? The catastrophe of all-female Ghostbusters in 2016. Now they've got a movie coming out that's about the kids or the grandkids of the original Ghostbusters, treats the franchise with tremendous respect. All of these companies that spent billions of dollars, billions, on properties that they were told were just cash cows, not only watched progressives destroy those franchises, but now they are just digging as fast as they can to get back into the good graces of the people who they alienated in the first place. So we're past peak wokeness, and I just think it's a shame that that this coach couldn't have done this, when it would have mattered, 4 years ago, maybe something like this. Now, it's really getting kind of boring at this point, and while I certainly have to stand back and admire the virtue of a man who has nothing but contempt for the job that he does and his role in this oppression, I have to say it just doesn't seem to me like it's very fresh anymore, and there must be a better way to do this. I personally think the actual act of the medieval practice of self-flagellation should come back. I think it would be very well received, and I think it would be kind of a retro take on the thing. maybe they could whip themselves with something like ribbons, like colored ribbons, like pink ribbons for the NFL. I got it.
There you go.
The new Seahawk jersey is a hair shirt.
Oh, man. Oh, oof. That'd make for some ugly tackles. I really hope that the NFL wakes up before it gets so woke that it goes broke. I miss watching my Broncos on Sunday afternoons and Monday nights and winning a Super Bowl now and then. It was a highlight of my weekends for years and years and years, and it just isn't anymore. And it's been that way for a long time, and I know it's been increasingly that way for more and more people over the last few years since the NFL started to go woke. What this reminds me of is what jazz did to itself. Jazz used to be the popular American music. That's what you heard when you turned on the radio in the 30s, 40s, and even for some of the 50s. But then Charlie Parker came along with bebop, and he blew everybody away. But Charlie Parker wasn't music that you could dance to. It wasn't music you could sing along with. He was so fast. He was so skilled. He was such a virtuoso that all you could do was sit there and be blown away by the music this man was playing. There was nothing else like it in the world. The problem is there can only be one Charlie Parker, but he was so good that everybody after that wanted to be Charlie Parker too and make music that you couldn't dance to and you couldn't sing along to, which are the two things that people love to do most with the music they love. In fact, jazz got so wrapped up inside its own head in the 50s and 60s and 70s that jazz musicians would tell you that if people like it, then it isn't real jazz.
That's right. No, that's right.
And sure enough, jazz stopped being America's popular music because if you're going to be popular, listen to me very carefully here. Lean into the screen just like I am. If you want to be popular, people have to like you. And this very simple lesson has gotten so lost on so many people in such positions of power in the various entertainment industries that it boggles my mind. And maybe sports can be saved. Maybe somebody will come along and make the Mandalorian version of NFL. I don't know. I can certainly hope. But hope right now is all we have. It's a slender read some days. That is your right angle on that, brought by the members of BillWhittle.com. I'd just like to remind you that content like this needs sponsors like you. So if you've been watching these for free, please click over to BillWhittle.com, become a member, become a supporter. We would love to have you on board. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.